Reddit's Ohanian. So Alexis Ohanian is leading a 54 and has led a $54 million raise for Doodles PFP project. Doodles is listed in that blue chip category, in my opinion. This just kind of further cements both their runway and the ability to scale up with whatever they're trying to do. We know that they're working with Pharrell. We know that they've done a lot of partnerships. We know that they create a good amount of community engagement and activation. So this is more of, good news, but more of the same from Doodles, in my opinion. Like they're honestly right below Yuga Labs and Bored Ape, in my opinion, like as being the runner up in the NFT space and gonna be big as we get to that next cycle. What are your thoughts on this race?
I agree with everything you just said. As somebody who does not currently have a doodle that's been watching the floor trying to get into it, I'm actually very upset that they didn't wait until after the merge to announce this news because the floor has been pumping a little bit and it's making it harder for me to get in. And yeah, I'm very bullish on doodles, and I agree. I think that they are essentially a blue chip at this point.
Yeah, so duplicators, I'm gonna pull up the screen really quick. Duplicators are up big. They're up like 50%, 73% in the last 7 days here from NFT price floor. We see a floor price of 1.4. It looks like they were chilling around 0.85 even a few days ago. I feel like the Doodles PFPs aren't doing as much here. Obviously, like the data kind of
They
backs us
pumped.
up a
They
little bit.
pumped.
Yeah.
I mean, they pumped a little bit. They would, but I think what's more interesting to me is to try and talk about like what does this mean for the Doodles ecosystem, right?
Hmm.
Because I would guess, and who knows? This is pure speculation, DYOR, what the heck ever else you want to say, NFA, blah blah blah. But I would guess if you've raised $54 million on top of whatever massive war chest they probably already have from having a massively successful collection, that you're probably going to launch some kind of token. I would guess.
Mm. Yeah, the token piece is interesting too when you bring in venture capital, right? Like that, obviously, like people when
Why?
they
Yeah. What? So sorry, real quick. I think you're right, and that is that. Why would a VC put $54 million into your company? Because they want to get that out. How do they get that out?
yeah, I mean, through if you're talking long term, eventually, like going public and things like this, maybe selling your position OTC. But if you want to do it on the public markets and be a little bit more liquid in a sense, you definitely like want to launch a token, clearly. So yeah, we
So
see
do
a
you?
crew.
So
Go ahead.
you think there's a chance that they go public as like a Web2 like IPO?
I mean, Yuga probably does that. OpenSea probably does that. I think we see more companies going public here that are like probably the largest in the space. I don't know if
Interesting.
it's like Doodle. It's interesting because it's not like Doodles PFP is gonna go public. Like, is what's the team?
So
Go ahead.
so I think that's what I was curious about and not understanding is that like it's hard for me to imagine an NFT project by itself doing a public IPO. I suppose it's possible. Like, maybe they could be the first, or you could see, a company, an NFT project becomes such a well-known brand that it, transitions into like a Web2 company and IPOs around that. To me, I think Doodles would need to more likely do what Bored Apes did, which is become part of a larger conglomerate of some sort, a larger ecosystem of many projects, become a portfolio, and then at that point, like when you're a Yuga Labs or something like that, I see that going public. That makes a lot more sense to me. But I don't know.
Yeah, I
Maybe.
mean, so when it comes to like an overall market cap, right? I think they had Yuga Labs and they had the amount when you like I guess get a market cap of all of their assets when you like put together Bored Apes, when you put together CryptoPunks, all these things together. I think it was like 10 times the size uh, of Doodles essentially. So I mean, at what point can a company go public? Yuga Labs is probably going to be the first, but I could see them like eventually. Like I think that's where we're going, right? Is this like area where again like the hardcore motherfuckers are going to say you should just launch a token. Why are you doing like the Web 2 route? Why are you selling out? It's like, well, I've always been firmly planted towards the place of mass adoption, and not everybody's going to be looking to acquire a Bored Ape or an Ape token. Although that's a good entry point for a lot of people on Coinbase. Most people want to get in, via things that they're using. Buying on Robinhood, for example, a stock of Yuga Labs. Like that's an entry point for somebody that doesn't want to touch the assets. So
Yeah, it's much easier for people who don't want to spend time like us degenning and studying this shit all day. How do you get exposure in a simple, relatively safe way? That makes
yeah,
sense.
great. I mean, like the token for Doodles though, that's an interesting point. I obviously like there's this line that NFTs and NFT projects like all have where eventually I think you get to the point where you're like we need to launch. I don't want to use the term need. I feel like I'm getting caught up in this a little bit too because projects don't need an ERC20 token, but it feels like most bigger projects lean that way.
Well, if yeah, I mean, there's so much potential to have your own economy and the liquidity that comes with that, and I it just seems like one of the natural developments and evolutions in the space for for a project that gets to a certain scale that can support that. And so yeah, I feel like again, this is all speculation. I feel pretty confident that Doodles will want to launch some kind of token, even if again it's like in a partnership or some kind of conglomerate situation. Because why would they partner with ApeCoin? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So we have a Twitter thread here from the Doodles team. This was another thing we were talking about prior. So after this raise, right, they're obviously going on like a hiring spree, which only leads to, again, if they can scale correctly, more of a chance that Doodles is going to be in that category with Yuga Labs. But it says our career page will go live with 18 new full-time positions. Key roles you can expect to see: head of finance, business affairs, marketing, social media manager, project managers. Front. I mean, it's cool to see the space get like this sophisticated, right? Like again, there's a little bit lost, right? It's almost like the we use the Wild West metaphor, where like obviously people from the East Coast start to move out west, and things that once were wild and crazy just become foundational towns and cities and all these things. But that's what it feels like when I read this. I'm like, damn, remember the days when we were just kind of bullshitting essentially, and it was cool to make a lot of money, but it was also cool to be on the forefront of this. Now you see almost like a full kind of thread here that's explaining almost in the same way you would see a Web 2 company explain a lot of these practices.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've look, Web3 companies, if they're going to survive, most of them need to become Web2 companies to an extent. At least right now, we are not in Web3 yet. We're still in Web 2 point whatever. And like, where do you go? You're very limited right now if you want to actually scale and build a real professional business that can thrive and scale. You have to actually work backwards right now and be a Web 2 company at a certain point. At least most of them. Maybe there's some exceptions. Maybe there's I'm sure there are some people are gonna fucking be like, well, what about these guys? I'm sure there's some collections and some companies out there that will be fully crypto native. They'll never do anything. But if you're trying to build a brand that actually exists and crosses over, into the mainstream in any sort of way, which is what Doodles is doing, then you have to become a Web2 company at some point. I'm here for this shit. I'm excited about it. This is the whole point for me about like being at the bleeding edge and like pioneering and being part of this movement is to be part of it growing and expanding and welcoming in new people and onboarding new people and leading this wave, right? And so that's what Doodles is doing. They are leading the wave. And let's be honest, there's been a lack of professionalism and business proficiency in the Web3 space so far. So to see companies actually becoming legitimate, adding some professionalism, adding, real hires, paying people well, hopefully, to come and do some of the stuff that they're already doing. I'm here for it.
Hey guys, it's Nifty Q. If you enjoyed that clip, you can catch me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on NFT Live with other respected leaders in the industry giving you their take on what's happening in NFTs and Web3. Links to the show are in the description. Hope to see you there.